Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So today's talk is about a firmament.
About time.
You wait a minute. So we have here in front of the room like a dome firmament, similar to what it's over our Earth. Not exactly the shape, but the idea is there. Gotta get this computer up. Sorry. So you can see here from the picture the idea that you have the atmosphere of Earth, and then you have a dome over it, a certain kind of atmospheric dome, which can be considered one firmament. And then you have space, which is considered another heaven. Our Earth is also considered heaven in the Bhagavatam, one of the heavenly realms, the first one, the first of 7. And then space is called Svarga, which is where the moon and the demigods live. And then on the edge of the universe, you have another firmament, which blocks us from the spiritual world. So that idea is in the Bible as well as the Bhagavatam. Rod, you ready?
The pitcher, steroid Santa Claus, kicks and deals. It's a long fly ball going back, and the ball shatters the sky, bringing the ocean itself down into the stadium. Oh, Simpson just broke this dream's reality wide open.
Yes, that's from The Simpsons, right? They're hiding the truth in plain sight. And so they're showing this idea that, basically that's from the biblical cosmology, saying that there's a firmament above us, and that there's waters above, spiritual waters. And so we know that's true actually from the Bhagavatam as well, is our universe is floating in spiritual water, and we're just like one bubble, and there's many universes and many bubbles that are floating in this spiritual water, and there's an outer covering that's keeping the water from coming in, and so that could be called a firmament. So the Bible mentions there's 2 firmaments. In one place it says the birds are within the firmament, and another place it says the sun, moon, and stars are within the firmament. So there's that picture again. Same idea. So here, we are stuck here. We have Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada says, yes, lotus petal, it is round. Lotus petal is also round. So in one lotus petal, you are conditioned. You cannot go. In a room conversation, he says, and they're taking it highly civilized way of life. Where are you going? You cannot go beyond this earth. You attempted so much to go to the moon planet, you failed. And where can you go? But. You'll have to stay here. But that rascal does not understand. He thinks, I am going very fast. Where are you going? You are destined to stay here. That he does not understand. Not only this motorcycle, the airplane also. They're also trying to go to this planet around. That Sputnik, first Sputnik, 18,000 miles, and they simply rounded over the world in 1 hour and 25 minutes. And where did you go? And when he's tired, they come down again. They cannot understand, these so-called scientists, that we cannot go in this way. There is higher authority. Mal Krishna says, they say it never ends because we're going around the planet. Prabhupada says, no, that is his dog's mentality going around. That is dog. He is thinking that this is the area. Now, he's controlled by superior power. That you cannot go. An example is, there are so many stars, moons, and we'll go there. But he cannot go. And Prabhupada says, man-made satellites and mechanical space vehicles will never be able to carry human beings to the planets of outer space. So here we have Prabhupada saying that we're conditioned, we're stuck here. So So not only are we stuck from going to the outer edges of the Earth, Bhumandala, the greater Earth circle, by a wall of ice, we're also stuck from going above by a dome. So we're going to watch our faithful friend Kamadev Prabhu. It's a great video. One day we should just watch the whole thing, all his videos, but I'll probably just show him in segments for now. So you can watch this, it's going to be like about 10 minutes.
First off, the thing that everybody needs to know, anybody who's coming into Krishna consciousness or in contact with it, is that every Krishna devotee across the board, worldwide, who accepts the main scripture we follow, the Srimad Bhagavatam as it is, all of them already accept that the greater Earth plane is flat and circular for 2 billion miles beyond this little part of Earth we're on. So already the entire Krishna conscious community everywhere accepts the flat circular Earth model. Even those who are still trying to cling onto the globe model as being a portion of that larger flat Earth plane, even they accept the greater Earth plane flat Earth model already. Okay? So, and the only ones who don't do that are the ones who may be like super new and who simply have not read the Bhagavatam and haven't been in the practice for very long at all. Those are the only ones who may not necessarily know this already, this fact. So it's already been it's already a standard in Krishna consciousness. It's already a standard in our texts and in our movement that the greater Earth plane is flat and circular. The only last lingering debate that's going around right now, which isn't actually a debate. Hey, welcome Kakadiyas. Hare Krishna. Keep for joining us, brother. So basically, yeah, the only lingering debate that we're going to disprove tonight and make very clear how that idea is false and ridiculous. But the only thing that's still lingering in some devotees' minds in different pockets throughout the planet is basically they're still thinking that this little portion of Earth we're on is the only globe part and that the rest of the flat Earth plane is in fact circular and like that. So in other words, they accept the whole rest of the Bhagavatam, but they're trying to connive and like finagle the globe Earth model to fit with the actual Bhagavatam larger flat Earth plane model. So in other words, they're basically thinking that we're this little globe circled dot sitting on top of water, and all the other lands, except for this little part of Earth, are flat. But they're thinking that this little tiny piece of Earth is the only part that's spherical. That's it. So right off the get-go, that's very absurd that they think that to begin with. Why they would think that? Why can't they just easily understand how this is also flat and circular? This is simply because there haven't been fully good quality diagrams yet showing it, of which I'm in the process of finalizing very good-looking diagrams with the measurements in actual proportion, which covers huge distances on the floor and things like this. So it'll basically be a poster. It'll have to cover my entire wall from front to back, so people can actually visually see what I'm seeing in my head when I'm reading these maps and looking at these maps, and what any devotee with common sense will be seeing also. But I'm going to show you the rough drafts of what I'm going to diagram in the final versions right now. So you can see this. First, we're going to refute this absurd globe Earth model thing sitting on top of the water. Now, if you recall the encoding of the globe Earth specifically crashing into the water, Sri Radha was partially indicating how absurd this model of the globe is. Let me go ahead and sure enough, I found this whiteboard just a few days ago in relationship to wanting to cover this topic, just sitting there in a dumpster as if Krishna was just saying, here, take it, just grab it. So here we go. This kind of looks more like water-y-ish, I guess you could say. So notice this diagram here really quick. This is basically the model that Krishna devotees are trying to, or certain pockets of Krishna devotees are trying to cling to. They already accept that the land underneath, that there's water, and that there's more land around this flatter water that's underneath us, but they're still clinging on to this bizarre little globe thing that they're believing it's sitting on top of the water or floating on top of the water somehow. Now look what I'm seeing here. What I wrote here is if you're standing south of the equator, in Australia, South America, any of these places, if this was actually the case, you would be looking up above your head and you would be seeing water above your head. You wouldn't see stars, you see water. So literally anybody who lives in the southern hemisphere would be looking at water when they look up. There you go. But you don't look up and see water. What do you see? You see stars. Okay? And we know very clearly from Bhagavatam the star system is above us. All the stars are above us. no matter where you are on Earth. And yes, there have been very detailed videos explaining how and why people in the southern hemisphere see the stars moving slightly differently than the northern hemisphere. It's easily explainable and showable on a flat circular model. Now, a lot of this has to do with what is called the atmospheric dome around this portion of Earth. Now, from what I've seen, I'm convinced that there is an atmospheric dome that obviously refracts. It's called, this word, refraction. Remember this word, okay? That refracts the sunlight in all sorts of different ways, okay? I'm not convinced that it's a solid dome necessarily, in the sense of being hard and rock solid, but it's a very thick atmospheric dome that does refract light, and this is very obvious in the observation. Now, if you were to get a crystal dome ball, or a glass dome ball, you can actually experiment and do this. You can shine a flashlight at different angles from it and move the light further away, closer up. The light will refract and reflect, and it'll appear differently to whoever would be standing inside of it from where the light's coming. So we know in the Bhagavatam the light's coming diagonally, okay, from the sun. The sun's moving around, but what we're seeing is this here. We're not actually seeing the sun's light. We're not actually looking directly at the sun ever. This little dome thing is shielding us from a lot of the sun. We're actually seeing what's refracting off of this dome that's around us. This is why people at the equator are seeing the sun practically overhead when it's never actually overhead. It's always eternally, diagonally, 93 million miles that direction, okay? And this is why somebody over here in the northern hemispheres and stuff, this is a very sloppy drawing, but you can see what I'm talking about here. See, their line of sight is seeing the sun diagonally, more in line with how the sun is actually positioned. But the people at the equator are not seeing it that way, see? Okay? So, as you can see here, this is refraction, this is how it works. So, soon enough, there will be a person who's even smarter at this than I am, among devotees, who's able to do all the math, who's able to do all the detailed virtual reality diagrams of this. And then, once that comes in, then people will visually be able to see what I'm talking about here. And they'll be able to zoom in and see how and why we see the sun the way it is above our heads, etc., etc. And the North Star also. Since this little part of Earth that we're on here is south of actual universal center, okay? A little bit south, not too far south though. And then Dhruvaloka is actually dead center above universal center. The same thing's happening here. So it's appearing that the North Star is directly overhead, but moving ever so slightly and around like this. It's because of how it's refracting off of this dome here, okay? So basically it's shining right up here. It's appearing, practically speaking, right at dead center north, and there's some very small, slight variation. So here goes on. Same thing, it has to do with this refraction stuff, okay? Now that we've got that out of the way, showing in a very basic diagram how and why we're seeing light shining the way it is, even though the sun is never actually over our heads in reality. Now we're going to cover, okay, so
how the fake rule model is connected to impersonalism. That's its main point in the talk. Very cool. We can maybe do a talk about that. Just watch that. So, as he was saying, right, the Bhagavatam's always diagonal to us, never over our head. So it's going around in a big circle. So why do we see it over our head like that? So like he's saying, it could be this atmospheric dome. And there's a lot of information to show that that's the case. He did mention 93 million miles. I know Raj is thinking that. I mean, according to Bhagavatam, that's not correct. That number is not mentioned. Because the universe is only 4, well actually, yeah, the universe is 4 billion. Well, actually his point was that the sun is 93 million miles out, not up, but that it's, and that could actually possibly be true. I'd have to look more into that, but because it's going around Mount Sumera Mountain. Oh no, sorry, Manasotar Mountain. So you have to look at how far that is from where we are. It could be, I don't think it's 93 million miles. I think it's about 2 billion or something. Well, so the word firmament is sometimes used to denote the sky, and also to denote the actual solid dome, solid firmament thing that's blocking everything from coming in. And that's mentioned in the Bible and the Gita. Here's a picture of some Egyptian artwork, early Egyptian artwork, right? So you have this guy here, she's a goddess, She's the dome over the flat earth. He's laying horizontally like that. So here we read in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, verse 12, if the effulgence of 1,000 suns simultaneously were to blaze forth in the firmament, then that might be comparable with the effulgence of the ultimate personality's universal form. This is not Prabhupada's translation. I don't know if our translation says firmament in the translation, but it might be in the word for word. But basically the idea is that here, Nabha Sprisham, touching the sky. So they use the word firmament to mean the sky. So it's the same in the Bible. Sometimes the word firmament is talking about the sky, like the sun is within the firmament, meaning the sun is in the sky, and then other times it's talking about the actual creation of this dome, where God created the firmament. So there's those two ideas. The Sanskrit word is rodasi, the horizon, sometimes used the firmament, also meaning the sky and the earth. And the word kam is also used to denote the sky. So in Krishna book and 10th canto we also read that when Krishna opened his mouth, when Mother Yashoda was asking him to open his mouth, you've eaten dirt, let me see. And she sees the luminaries in all the directions, the sun, the moon, everything, and he sees the whole sky. And the word used there is rodasi, firmament. And you see another video about the firmament here. Our flat earth man.
It is a solid barrier we can't get through. It's called the firmament between me and you. Don't check where the bomb brought next door. He knew about that firmament, no. You left you waffle and then nodded away. For those of you still able to think, Psalm 19:1, chapter and verse. The firmament shows his handiwork. That's why when our rockets leave the earth, they form a parabolic curve. We'll then switch over to an animation. Then it's over to your imagination. But I'm here to tell you that in reality, our rockets end up in a graveyard in the sea. Our launch pads are those coastal regions. We put them there for a very good reason. Yes, we do. There's no substitute.
So that verse is saying, the heavens declare the glory of God, the firmament showeth his handiwork. So this guy, Werner von Braun, kind of interesting that he put that on his tombstone, verse 19:1, that same exact verse which talks about the firmament. It's basically telling us we can't go to space. That's what that verse is saying. There's a barrier between us and these heavenly planets that we can't get to. Werner von Braun also has some pretty cool quotes. It says, my experiences with science led me to God. They challenge science to prove the existence of God. But must we really light a candle to see the sun? Werner von Braun is his headstone with Psalm 19:1. He says science and religion are not antagonists. On the contrary, they are sisters. While science tries to learn more about the creation, religion tries to better understand the Creator. While through science man tries to harness the forces of nature around him, through religion he tries to harness the force of nature within him. He says, I believe in an immortal soul. Science has proved that nothing disintegrates into nothingness. Life and soul, therefore, cannot disintegrate into nothingness, and so are immortal. So here we're going to see actual footage. It is amateur footage of a balloon going up real high into the sky and hitting the firmament, hitting something solid that's not letting it go any further, and then at the end the balloon pops. So you see that?
just of the same altitude.
Yeah, it's not going higher, and it's like rotating around. Something's not letting it move.
Wow.
Crazy, man.
How high is the firmament supposed to be?
Well, this video says it's 112,000 miles up.
Feet.
Feet?
I think so, yeah.
That's right. That's correct.
112 feet, 1,000 feet?
Yeah, right.
Where did they say space flight?
Let's see.
What are the signs? Where did they say space stores?
I had that in here, Provo. I took it out. You're reading my mind. But let me just Google
I
it.
know you had like a stratosphere and back and spheres, whatever.
They say 62 miles.
Boundary feet.
So 112,000 feet into miles is 21 miles up. It's not very high.
The firmament
21 miles.
Yeah. And that's what that video is saying.
You're saying
So,
they start at 62 miles.
right. And we know, like, from the Bhagavatam measurements, was it 23 miles over it? It's like nothing. At the top of Mount Meru was like 62,000 miles up. The sun is 800,000 miles up. So 112, almost 113,000 feet. So that's what this video shows. Let's see. So low. They say they can only go in low Earth orbit, and if we look up low Earth orbit, it's not very high. Although their definition varies, but the low Earth orbit is 1,200 miles or less. But sometimes they say it's like a lot less. So maybe they ain't even going that high, you know. Planes fly at 32,000 feet. Yeah, that's right. So planes fly at 32,000 feet, 33,000 feet, which is pretty high. And then you got this dome, let's say it's up there at 113,000 feet. So they're probably just going, that's as high as they can go. And as far as their pictures of Earth, they say that. We're taking strip shots of, like as much as we can take in one picture, and we go down the same flat plane, basically. And then we take another shot, and then we just stitch it all together in 3D. So, and they admit that they can't get high enough to see the entire ball in one shot. So yeah, they're blocked by this here dome. And we saw last week the Operation Fishbowl, where they were shooting rockets at this thing, trying to explode it, and wasn't exploding.
Yeah, that.
Makes sense?
Well, like, because they're getting pictures of like the clouds and stuff. Is that all Photoshop? The clouds?
Pictures of the you mean on the Earth?
Yeah.
On the round Earth? Yeah. Well, some of it is, because some of them you can see they're stamped. It's the same cloud everywhere. So they definitely use Photoshop. Some of them. So the Bhagavatam says that the sky between the earthly sphere and the heavenly sphere is called Antariksha, or outer space, and it joins the top of the sphere of the earth with the bottom of that of heaven. So the firmament, or this first firmament, first dome, could be like right in that area. And it also says that Antariksha extends as far as the wind blows and the clouds float in the sky, and that the upper limits extend as high as swans, hawks, eagles, and similar large birds can fly. So So we talked about that, Antariksha being that outer space, the intermediary area between Earth's atmosphere and the heavenly realm. So that. And also when I looked this up in the Sanskrit English dictionary, it also used the word firmament. Yeah, sham, a firmament, the intermediate region between the sky and the earth. So that could be where the firmament is. So another proof that there is some kind of dome there is that we see curved objects that shouldn't be curved, that are not described as being curved in the scripture, such as the planets, the wheel of the chakra above us of the planets, the stars, and the luminaries. It's just a big wheel. And it's described that if we study our Earth down here, the size of it, it's exactly the same as up there. They're both exactly the same. So it's like the two halves of a bean seed, and Antariksha joins them together. So Bhagavatam says, as a grain of wheat divided into two parts, one can estimate the size of the upper part by knowing that of the lower. So expert geographers instruct one can understand the measurements of the upper part of the universe by knowing those of the lower part. The sky between the earthly sphere and heavenly sphere is called Antariksha, outer space. We just read that. So this is right in the Bhagavatam after it describes Bhumandala, that it's 4 billion miles in circumference, describes all the details and everything. And then it says, okay, you can understand that, you can understand above. But what we see is a curved dome. We can sometimes see even stars on the horizon or near the horizon. So it looks like a big dome of stars. So that's just from this atmospheric dome above us that is refracting the light from the stars. So, and this can be understood in the Bible also. There's this picture from the Bible where they show, here you have heaven above, heavenly ocean, solid firmament. This is the outer firmament, the original one, that keeps the spiritual waters from coming in. And then you have the earthly realm. So obviously, there's something that's bending this for us. And here you can see the same idea, that these stars are not bent like this. They're in the same kind of wheel. They're just above each other, along the same horizontal plane. We know these as planetary systems, and those planetary systems are like a disk. They're all like disks above each other, 14. But we don't see it that way. We see it as a dome, so that's not more proof. There's a picture of the early picture of the dome, somebody reaching the edge of it, where it joins the Earth, which would be actually at the edge of Antarctica, the ice walls at some point. So this is pretty awesome. Here, you look at Sumerian cosmology. They got it down pat. Really interesting stuff. So they show here 3 different firmaments, 3 different atmospheres. It says the world of Sumerians is like an inverted plate in a salty ocean, just like Bhagavatam says. Below this plate lie the hell, called Kur by Sumerians. Above the plate are the arched roofs of heaven. The whole system is embedded in a freshwater ocean. Rain comes from this freshwater ocean by opening doors in the vaults of heaven. So that's just like our cosmology. It's like a big bubble floating in water. And it says that there's the roofs of heaven. So there could be 3 different roofs. It's another word for firmament, basically, It's some kind of dome over us. So here we have it again. You have the heaven, the highest heaven of God of hosts, so that would be Svarga, where the demigods live. Heaven of the constellations, different stars, constellation patterns. And then Earth is flat down here. You have the abyss below, the underworld. Look at that, that's Svarga. Yeah, that's Bhumandala, the cosmic ocean underneath, the Garbhodaka ocean underneath us. Same thing, sky on, air is Enu, and the earth like that. So we can see this idea of the different firmaments. Now there is a debate in like the Christian community. Some people say there's 2 firmaments, some say there's more, and there's other people say, no, it's just one, there's no proof. The Bible doesn't say there's not 2 firmaments. This is kind of a good debate because Lotus can say the same thing. Bhagavatam doesn't say there's 2 firmaments. But it gives hints to it. And it just seems to be something we can observe. Just like the ice wall seems to be a factor. There's walls of ice keeping us in here. Similarly, there's a dome over us keeping us in. Now that just happened in Kali Yuga, so it's possible that it wasn't mentioned in the Bhagavatam because it had just happened in Kali Yuga. I should have thought. So the sun's position and distance based on this dome here and the refraction. We're going to see a cool video here where people also ask with this flat earth model, how could half of the world be lit up by the sun and the other half night if that's only because the earth is a globe, right? Supposedly the sun is shining on this side and then the moon's over here like that, but it's easily explained on the flat earth plane. But in order to understand it, you have to take into account this dome above us. We're going to see this here.